Let me introduce you to the hometown of Charles de Gaulle by reading some passages from his memoirs. In rural France, you'll find ancient, timeless towns with old churches, trustworthy families, and the eternal recurrence of ploughing, sowing, and harvesting. Here you find regions of ancestral legends, folk songs and folk dances, local dialects, costumes and markets. This is my residence. In the turmoil of human affairs, I've always been tempted by solitude. Solitude now is my friend. Who else would satisfy after one has met with history? Moreover, this part of Champagne is steeped in tranquility. Extended perspectives, forests, fields and fallow farmland, flattened mountains disposing resignation, unembellished quiet villages, which remained unchanged over 1,000 years. I love this tranquility. Silence reigns in my house. This room, where I spend most of the day, opens up to a distant western perspective. Over plains and forests, my eyes follow the gentle slope into the valley of the Aube River and the uplands beyond. At night, when looking at the stars above, the insignificance of worldliness forces itself upon me. This old man, exhausted by tribulation, no longer attached to worldly endeavors, feeling the eternal coolness creeping up, tirelessly continues to peer into the dark, looking for a glimpse of hope. Although I guard against obtruding myself on the local population, people surround me with a simple, unpretentious friendship. I know them, and I respect them. I love them. Charles de Gaulle died on the 9th of November 1970. He was buried at the churchyard of Colombey-les-Deux-Églises. De Gaulle was a distinguished officer during World War I, wounded in battle twice, and known for 5 heroic escapes as a prisoner of war. After the war, he was selected as member of the Legion of Honor. Captain de Gaulle becomes the protege and secretary of World War I hero, the Field Marshal Pétain, the victor of Verdun. Pétain enables him to lecture at the prestigious École Supérieure. Later, Pétain appoints him as secretary of the Supreme Council for National Defense. In this capacity, de Gaulle warns against the ineffectiveness of the national defense. Unfortunately, all his warnings are in vain. When the Germans attacked France in 1940, German panzers sweep all the way to the Channel with hardly anyone to stop them. Colonel de Gaulle, having scrapped together a couple of hundred of tanks, is one of the very few who effectively resists German pressure in northern France. De Gaulle is temporarily promoted Brigadier General. As Under-Secretary of Defense, he recognizes that this war can no longer be won in France. He talks with Churchill about the continuation of the war efforts in northern Africa. But the bulk of the French are convinced that Hitler has already won the war. When Pétain forms a government intending to negotiate an armistice with the Nazis, de Gaulle dissociates himself from the French government by returning to England. Following the armistice, France is divided in two. A northern zone, occupied and ruled by German forces from Paris, and an unoccupied southern zone, administered by the Pétain government in Vichy, collaborating at all levels with the Nazis. In London, de Gaulle is determined to save the honor of his country. Churchill places the BBC at his disposal. De Gaulle's first historic broadcasting takes place on the 18th of June. The outcome of this war has not been settled by the Battle of France. This is a world war. The general is then calling on all the French, in France and abroad, to contact him and refuse to surrender. According to de Gaulle, the Vichy government has lost any claim to legitimacy after Pétain signed an armistice with Hitler. On the 27th of October 1940, de Gaulle establishes the Provisional Government in Exile, which is soon recognized by Great Britain, the Soviet Union, and several other countries. From the moment de Gaulle forms his provisional government, his political aims are way beyond the liberation of France from the Nazis. De Gaulle realizes that France will only remain independent if French troops will make a significant contribution not only to their own liberation, but to the liberation of Europe as well. De Gaulle establishes the Free French, an independent French fighting force. At that time, most people think the man is out of his mind. On the international stage, he is practically unknown. He has no money, hardly an organization, and hardly any support. Moreover, in England, the military is strongly opposed to the formation of an independent French fighting force, as the military prefers the integration of the French volunteers into the British army. Only Churchill understands that as France is completely controlled by Nazi Germany, the organization of resistance in France and abroad is crucial. Churchill enables de Gaulle to assemble 7,000 Free French during the first month of his exile. 7,000 Free French, hardly trained, unarmed, but still. The cross of Lorraine is introduced as a counter-symbol of the swastika. Despite the suspicion of the Americans, the ridicule of the British, the indifference in France, the Free French start to make their contributions to the war effort. They support the landing operations of the Allies in northern Africa. They participate in the landing operations in Sicily and southern Italy. Shoulder to shoulder with the Allies, they storm the beaches of Normandy. And they make a significant contribution during Operation Dragoon, the landing operations in southern France. At the end of the Battle of Normandy, just before the liberation of Paris, de Gaulle persuades the Supreme Allied Commander, General Eisenhower, to rush a French armored division to the aid of the Paris insurrection. De Gaulle embodies the Free French when he leads a parade from the Arch of Triumph to the Cathedral of Notre Dame. While walking down the Champs-Élysées, he responds to the jubilant cheers of the liberated Parisians by opening his hands. It is as if he is accepting a new mission, after the liberation of France, to restore the shattered self-image of his beloved country. How? From the beginning of the war, de Gaulle had realized that the only way to rehabilitate his country from the shame of the collaboration with the Nazis would be to fight on the side of the Allies, and even more important, to participate in the destruction of the Hitler regime, to end up on the side of the victorious armies. Yes, to win the war. So, after the liberation of Paris, armed forces of the French resistance are integrated into a newly formed French army. With the Allies, the French army moves into Germany, thus contributing to the destruction of Nazi Germany as a military power. That was the political genius of Charles de Gaulle. Despite the collaboration of Vichy France with the Nazis, the French are sitting next to the Americans and the British when the Germans signed the unconditional surrender on May 8, 1945, in Reims. Together with the Americans, the British and the Russians, French troops occupied part of Germany after the war.